welcome to this week's episode of Rain Check. I'm Chief Meteorologist David Young, joined by meteorologist Cole Engel. This is going to be a hot-button issue for a lot of people because we know how big digital is in our lives in broadcast, but really for everyone. I mean, not even related to broadcast television or anything like that. Just the average person spends a lot of time on Facebook and social networks.
Right.
So it makes a big impact on our lives.
Yeah, and this episode, we're going to talk about some meteorological buzzwords that we've been seeing, especially a lot lately on social media, especially with the winter that we've had so far, the cold air. But we're going to go a lot more detail with a bunch of other stuff too. But certainly these last few years, there's been a lot more of it.
And when we say buzzwords, we're referring to things that you see on social media that are designed to get you to interact, whether it's a like or a share, or a comment, because the engagement numbers, that's what you're judged by in the digital world. And so the more engagement you have, the better your page is going to do, potentially the more money you're going to make. So there are a lot of words in weather, buzzwords that we hear every day. And we know that's what they're designed for. But as meteorologists, it drives us nuts.
Yes. Especially when you hear it from people that don't have degrees. And,
Right.
They're just trying to get the hype up, you know, for their pages. So it is a little frustrating. But, this episode, we're going to just kind of almost educate people a little bit more about some of the buzzwords that you might see commonly on social media. Right.
And I'll say this again at the end of the show, but our idea here is beware the share, because there are new pages online every day. When we're not talking about local pages per se. We're talking about across the nation, across the
Broad
world.
scheme of it, yeah.
There are new weather pages every single day. Some of them are actual people. Some of them are meteorologists.
Yeah.
Some are bots. There's a lot of different sources of information out there. So we're going to jump in. And our first term that you hear a lot, and especially it pertains to more weather along the West Coast, is the atmospheric river.
Yes. Yeah, and there's something that's really important about the atmospheric river is we have a lot of precipitation that comes up with these events, and something this is most common in California. And, we've had a lot of droughts there recently, so the term atmospheric river has been used a lot more for these events that happen there. And they can be both beneficial and they can be both pretty bad too when it comes to these events.
Right. Let's jump into that first term, and we'll show you what we're talking about. This is the atmospheric river, and this is what it really is. I mean, you can think of this a couple different ways. So a river, you think of like a river, like the Grand River or some river in Michigan. Mm-hmm. But this is more water vapor, but it's a narrow area of water vapor that's getting funneled towards, in this case, the California coast. But it's really very, very necessary. It's happened forever. It's going to happen, probably long after humans are gone.
Yeah.
It's still going to be there. But it's basically a river of water vapor that feeds in. So it's in the sky. This isn't actual water, but it is literally the gas form of water, H2O, in vapor form. And basically what happens is, so for rain, you need lift. Yep. And this is that band of moisture coming in, and then it gets some lift from the terrain in that area. And so as it goes up, that's lift, and it creates moisture. Lower levels, you get rain. And then higher elevations, of course, you get snowfall. But that's critical for places like California when you think about their water usage, not just in the winter months, but year-round.
Right. Yeah, and especially what's important is that snowpack on the mountains. If you can get a lot of that built up on the mountains, and just over in the summertime too, once that starts to melt, it obviously provides a great source of water for, all of California or anywhere in general for that matter.
Right. So this is not something that just started happening 5 years ago.
Right.
This has been there for a long time. But those key words, when you see those, and we're going to talk about some that affect Michigan a little bit more.
Yeah.
But when you see those key words, atmospheric river slams the Pacific Northwest, you immediately think of share and like, and of course that feeds into the engagement, and so that's why you see these terms online.
Right.
There are other terms, of course, that affect us a little more so. In the example we're going to talk about, we're going to discuss more one maybe heading up the East Coast. But this is one that drives me crazy. When I see bomb cyclone, hitting Michigan or the northeastern U.S., my blood pressure instantly rises because there have been low pressures that strengthened rather quickly along the East Coast, here in the Midwest, and other parts of the country that has existed for a long, long time. But now, thanks to the digital world, we get that buzzword, bomb cyclone or bombogenesis, that immediately flies out there.
More than ever, especially because we actually had one, I think it was the end of December, that actually went right through the Midwest. So we heard that term in mid-Michigan pretty commonly, especially towards the end of December.
Let's jump into it then. Yeah. What is a bomb cyclone? So in this case, like we talked about, this is an example of a low pressure system on the East Coast. It happens more on the East Coast simply because water is going to stay warmer in the winter as opposed to land. And so you have this natural frontal boundary, or baroclinic zone, we call it. I haven't seen baroclinic used as a buzzword yet, but no. I'm sure it's coming. And so the storm, in this case, a low pressure system, starts to form. It's feeding on the Gulf water, the Gulf, water content that's really warm. And then on the west side, you've got really cold air feeding in. So you have this strong gradient temperature-wise, and then upper level energy overrides that. And then the low pressure system begins to form. And so the ingredients have to be right for this rapidly strengthening low pressure system. And in the Midwest, ours is more simply because maybe it's an Arctic front, some kind of cold front
some
moving
big
through.
Temperature gradient. Yep.
Exactly. And so once the system forms with that gradient in place, then you start to see it, really strengthen. So there's an actual definition for bomb cyclone or bombogenesis. And it's defined as central pressure dropping 24 millibars or more in 24 hours. It can happen any time of the year, obviously, but you get the largest temperature gradient in the winter.
Right.
So that's not surprising.
Yep.
And it can result in, heavy rainfall. It can result in heavy snowfall. You think back to the superstorm that slammed the Northeast with 70-mile-per-hour winds and heavy snow and rain along the coast. Certainly, those are huge events, but they don't happen that often. But they've happened a long time before the past 5 to 10 years. Yeah. You think of the blizzard of 78 for mid-Michiganders.
Great example.
Yeah. That's a huge storm. But those happened before we ever had that term.
Right. Yeah. I would have to say, of course, I'm a little bit younger, but I haven't heard the term bombogenesis or bomb cyclone until very recently, at least the last few years. But like you said, there is a technical definition. It's just 24 millibars, which is the pressure of the system. It drops in 24 hours. But there's actually a little bit more of a technical definition. I was actually just talking to meteorologist Kendall Wilson about that. And it's actually the lower you are in latitude, the less amount of pressure has to be dropped for it to be considered a bomb cyclone. So I wonder if that's commonly more, or people talk about that more, therefore more low pressure systems are referred to undergo bombogenesis. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, I thought, it's just something we're going to start hearing a lot more often, especially with all the hype that just the one that we had in December had. So.
Right. You hear the term, or you see a post online, bomb cyclone from Michigan.
That's
going to get a share.
The word bomb in it.
It's not like, we in the weather world, we've often used that term. It's been around for a long time. And there are obviously a lot more words that will probably crop up on social media, in the next 10 years.
For sure.
But that particular term, has been around for quite a while. And in-house, we would say, boy, this thing could really bomb. And that's what we're referring to, talking behind the scenes. But in terms of our viewers, do you really care so much that the pressure dropped 24 millibars in this amount of time? Yeah. You just want to know how much snow you're going to get, how cold it's going to be. And
how windy. Yeah.
Right. I can remember a day and time throughout my career where broadcast meteorologists were kind of the brunt of, oh, you guys hype every storm. You're always trying to get us excited about a storm to get you to tune in. Now, certainly we want you to tune in.
Right.
But we've always operated under the idea that if we hype something, bomb cyclones coming from mid-Michigan, you may get 7 inches of snow.
Yeah.
That's not that bad.
Right.
So we try to stay away from that a lot. We want to just give you the facts as we see them.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's not that we're not trying to get you to tune in. We're going to let you know, hey, 7 inches are coming, and it could be really windy. But we don't want to scare people either with the terms like that.
For sure. And it's just like the credibility thing too. When we try to blow things out of proportion and then it doesn't actually turn out quite that way, then
Right.
people are going not to, or they're not going to trust us as much.
It's
So-
hard enough to just get the forecast right, each day to not worry about, well, that wasn't much of a bomb cyclone.
Right.
So we tend to stay away from those. There are other seasons that have, big buzzwords as well. Summertime, and this past year, we had a pretty active severe weather season.
It was pretty early too. It was end of March,
Yes.
and then middle of May.
Right.
We had 2 MCS events, and it was
Right. We had a tornado touchdown in the city limits of Lansing, did some damage. Those are pretty epic events, and we thought, boy, we're really in trouble this year. If we're already starting out with this kind of activity,
right. Yeah.
can you imagine what the rest of the season is going to be like? And then it got pretty quiet, by summer, midsummer, and into the fall. Typically, we have our second severe weather season in the fall, and we really didn't see a lot of that this year.
No, not much. I forgot the total amount of tornadoes that the state of Michigan had, but I think it was in the either 30s or 40s.
Yeah, I'm sure it was at least in the 30s, and most of that coming with the, those first couple of events.
Yes, and they're all lower end EF0, EF1s, but regardless, they're tornadoes. I think the average number is 16. So, we saw double than that. So it was quite a spectacular severe weather season for sure.
Yes. And speaking of summertime severe weather, that brings us to our next shareable
buzzword,
term, derecho.
Derecho.
And it is a term that has been around for a long time. When we're coordinating with the National Weather Service and SPC and other meteorologists, of course, those are the terms we always use because, if we think that's going to happen. But to say that, use that term on air, and we do. It's not like we never say derecho on air.
Right.
But it's a word we carefully use because, when you hear that, you think, oh boy, this could be really bad.
Right.
And it can be.
Yeah. And kind of like with derecho, though, it actually does have a set of guidelines with it, kind of like with a bomb cyclone.
Right. And so let's look at that. I mean, you kind of look through these must-haves for it to be considered a derecho. And there's a pretty strict definition there, which is why we use it so carefully. It's got to be widespread, long-lived wind event associated with a line of thunderstorms, and it usually has straight line winds, although you can easily spin up tornadoes in there. But the meat of it is that it's got to travel up to 250 miles, and you want to see wind reports of greater than 58 miles per hour. Not just in, across Wisconsin, and then it skipped across half of Michigan. Detroit got some, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's got to be numerous wind or damage reports associated with, severe thunderstorm winds along basically the entire path.
Right. And the thing about derechos too is there's got to be the perfect ingredients that come together for it, especially for the longevity of it. You're talking about the wind shear, the moisture, the cape for it. It's just all got to come together to create such an event like a derecho.
And there are many ones that, it could be a derecho, but we've got Lake Michigan, and sometimes storms don't feel the lake waters as easily as other times because sometimes they can break up. Yeah. So it's always a questionable call for us. How will the storms survive crossing the lake? And there are times where, we see the signs that, this is going to be an event that just rakes across the lake, doesn't slow down, stays just as strong. And we've had, numerous events that had those characteristics and were then, classified as a derecho.
Right.
In terms of where they typically occur. I mean, it's kind of surprising when you look at that graphic. Of course, you expect somewhere in the central or southern plains, you're going to get, several of those per year. And it's true. They do happen. One event, my daughter was competing in World Pintos in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they had a derecho come over. And horses were injured. It was a really they had trouble getting out of Oklahoma because of the massive amount of trees and power lines down. Yeah. So it took them an extra day to get back home trying to navigate around that. But you look here in Michigan, every year.
Yeah, once a year.
Right.
I actually, one of the last projects I did when I was in school, it was, I think, over the August 2024 derecho, and it started out in Iowa, and it moved it all the way over into, I think, it got as far as Ohio. And it's just amazing to see how wind reports could start all the way, from Iowa and then span all the way over to Ohio. And we're talking about 100-mile-an-hour wind reports from this event. And it's just remarkable. And again, it just all comes down to the right ingredients. Something that was really interesting, and I touched on this when I was looking over the event, was we talk a little bit about corn sweat. For the moisture aspect. And this was like right around August, or it was July, which is a little bit earlier for corn, but we had a earlier like spring, like warmth in that part of the country. So it was kind of interesting to see maybe if that plays a part in it, because, we talk about a lot, not too much here in Michigan, but especially over in the plains about corn sweat and how they can affect the systems that we have going through there.
Do you remember this event?
I was not alive yet.
You weren't alive yet?
Is this the 1998 one?
Gosh.
Yeah.
I suddenly feel very old.
No.
Is that okay?
But the thing is, I get really excited when I talk about this because it impacted where I grew up big time. It wasn't one of the confirmed, it was one of the damage assessment wind reports. It was in Spring Lake, which is just down the street from where I grew up. 130-mile-an-hour wind report. And it was at like 5 a.m. too,
right? Which
is really, really remarkable. Because usually when we do get storm reports, it's like in the afternoon, later in the evening when we've had that daytime heating and stuff. But this was just such an odd event. And it, spanned from, I think it started in Minnesota, worked all its way down to Ohio. Yeah. I mean, it was really it's a really neat event to look over. And I love hearing my parents' stories about it. Like I said, I wasn't quite born yet, but it was really, really neat event.
I mean, if you think about it, 130-mile-per-hour winds, an EF0 tornado, you're not going to get the kind of damage you're going to get with that. These can be at times way more destructive than tornadoes, the weaker tornadoes, and even your larger tornadoes, while they are very destructive, the damage path is much, obviously, more narrow, and these are widespread.
Yes.
I can remember several derechos here, and, one in particular was probably, it's got to be like 2007 or 8, something like that, where, at my house, we didn't have power for several days, and some didn't have power for a week or more.
Yeah, and it's all because, you have such a large area where, there's been so much damage and everyone loses power. These people that, put the power back, they 24/7 trying to get everyone's power back, but there's just so many people that have lost it that it takes so much time,
Right.
I mean, the same thing goes with like ice storms and stuff too, but yeah, that's how it's been a remarkable event when it takes days, to get your power back.
And because these can be so destructive, it drives meteorologists crazy when they see it posted online. Derecho possible tomorrow, derecho possible later this week.
Yep.
It's thrown around too loosely.
Yes.
We really reserve that for events that we're sure of or reasonably sure of, because, if you throw that term around, you want it to have meaning. So you want to reserve that for when you're fairly confident it's going to happen.
Yeah, if, we keep using that term, it's just going to, dwindle its credibility more and more.
Right.
It's not going to be as an important word. If we throw around the word derecho every single day in the summer when there's a chance of a thunderstorm, people are just going to, overlook it. So
Right, exactly right. And that's why, we try to be careful with that.
Yeah.
So, I remember when kind of all this started. So, you don't, but us old folks, we remember when Facebook became a thing and the digital world was new. And, it was just kind of uncharted territory.
Yeah.
A lot of people really didn't take it seriously. But now stations and everyone, because you can literally have a Facebook page, a website, and a YouTube page and make more than enough to have a good living if you've got the content.
Right.
So it was probably around 2010 to 2014 where I started to notice some pages would start to post something that was, I thought, kind of an early call. You sure you want to do that? Your credibility is going to be shot.
Right.
But I realized pretty quickly that they sure are getting a lot of shares and likes out of that.
Yep.
So for me, it was 2013. That was the year of the big ice storm that hit central mid-Michigan.
Okay.
1/2 inch to 3/4 inch or more of freezing rain. Then it got really, really, really cold. Lots of folks were without power for weeks because of that and in sub-zero weather. An unbelievable event.
Right.
The term was polar vortex, my arch nemesis when it comes to seeing things
Yes.
shared online. So here's basically a breakdown of what the polar vortex is. And my gosh, it has been around before social media, before digital, before humans. It's been here for a really long time. A normal setup, the polar vortex is there. It's just kind of doing its thing. It's a permanent area of low pressure. And as long as, the jet stream is kind of, stronger or weaker, it has a big influence on what the polar vortex is going to do. When, we start to see that strong jet stream start to change a little bit, it begins to weaken perhaps, then lobes of that vorticity begin to break off. And that's what we saw in 23. And, probably before social media, you would hear meteorologists in this region refer to the Hudson Low.
Yeah.
Which was kind of it's a semi-permanent sort of thing. It launches Alberta Clippers in our direction.
Yep.
It launches cold air in our direction. Yeah. But when it's a stronger Hudson Low and the polar vortex is really whopping off a lob of vorticity or low pressure systems further south, and we dealt with that, this past winter.
Yeah, just this winter.
Yeah, we had so many days with low temperatures near zero, below zero, high single digits and teens. And that's really, the reason why that was happening. So this is nothing new.
Yeah.
But that year, after that big ice storm, every time there was a chance it was going to get really cold, you would see polar vortex on the digital world, whether it was YouTube or Facebook or whatever other platforms are out there.
Yeah.
You would see that quite a bit. That particular year, it's understandable why the term got so much use.
Wow,
because
look at that.
Yeah, look at those power outages
everywhere.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of folks were without power, from that system. But as we kind of rolled through, 2014, 2015, 2016, up to current day, we began to see, a lot more use of that term. And boy, I hear it everywhere. It's in commercials now.
Yes.
It's in social media. It is a part of our lives now.
Yeah.
But rest assured, the polar vortex has always been a part of our lives.
It's always a thing.
Yeah.
My personal event from when I really started first hearing the word was back in 2019. And I remember this week very specifically because I think we had a low pressure system that gave us about a foot of snow in Muskegon. And then we just had constant lake effect after because we had just like an Arctic front that came through, and it brought very similar temperatures to what we had about, a week ago, where it was in the single digits. And I remember saying to my friends, like, I don't think we're going to have school this week, guys. And they thought I was crazy. But, like I said, there was the first system and then all the lake effect and then just persistent cold after that. And I remember very vividly on that Wednesday night, the superintendent called school for not just Thursday, but for Friday. And I was like, I told you guys, it was so great. But
in advance.
So that's when people a lot of times, think of the word polar vortex. I think about the polar vortex of 2019. But like you're saying, it's always there.
Right.
It's just whether or not it breaks, and we start to see very cold temperatures like we had this year, or in 2013 with that ice storm. But it's just whatever, people can relate to, or like, this is the significant event I remember, and then it just kind of sticks with them.
Right.
So,
It's as I said, it's all about the engagement and things like that. So I don't think those terms or any others are going to go away for a long time.
Sure.
But after that year of 2013 into 2014, this is kind of how I felt about the polar vortex. Say polar vortex one more time. Yeah. Because it was just everywhere and I couldn't escape it. And at that time, I didn't really understand fully what was going on.
Yeah.
Because digital, again, was just becoming a big thing.
Yeah, and it happened so quickly. Right. Just like you said, over the matter of a couple of years, especially how it is now with AI too. AI is playing a huge role with that, and with the bots and everything we see on social media. So it's really hard, very frustrating for us meteorologists just to kind of like, all right, guys, like, here's these words, but, here's what they actually are.
Right. This sort of brings us to kind of the final point of this, because we could go all day with more buzzwords.
Oh, yeah.
But ultimately, I go back to that little saying, beware the share.
Yes.
Because there are a lot of good meteorologists in the digital world who exclusively do digital. There's some locally, there's a few nationally that I follow. that are good sources for weather information. But as the end user, it's important for our viewers and those that are watching us right now. Just if you see something new and you're like, wow, that's pretty out there. Let me check this site out. Follow it and evaluate it over a few storms.
Right. Yeah. See if they print out something and say this is going to happen, and then you look back at that, and if it didn't really happen, just kind of remember that. Just for the whole credibility thing, because if you see constant, people are saying this is going to happen, and it doesn't quite happen, right? And it's probably in your best interest to not listen to those people as much anymore.
You'll see sites too. I saw a site recently that posted this huge snowfall track, and we'll just say through the Great Lakes region.
Yes.
And when I saw that, I thought, well, first let me check GFS, European ensemble models, and see if there's any validity to this. And I realized really quickly. So when we talk about GFS, for example,
right,
there's the operational model that we all use, but they are run by basically, you could think of a weather model as a plug and play equation.
Yep.
So you model thunderstorms this way, but mathematically it's very valid to model it this way. So you start changing out the components of the model and you rerun it and you rerun it and you rerun it. And so there can be, I probably look at, 150 to 300 models a day.
Yeah.
But a lot of those are ensemble members.
Yes.
And so what was taken was one ensemble member out of 50.
Yeah.
And posted. And the first line was basically something along the lines of, this is not a forecast. Well, then why are you posting it? But it had, at the time when I looked at it, it was over 1,000 shares, so it was getting a lot of traction.
And it's always the most dramatic scenario.
Exactly. So
always.
For the end user, again, it's your job to evaluate those sites and follow them for several storms. And if you feel like they're giving me really good information, I like this, follow them, pay attention to them. But find those sources that are giving you the most realistic, like our philosophy when it comes to snow forecasting.
Right.
If we think 9 inches of snow is going to come tomorrow, we're generally going to go around 6 to 10 because we don't want to over or under promise a storm. We want it to end up in our range and preferably a little towards the higher end. There are some sites that will post, that is their low end range, and they may go, 7 to 14.
Yeah.
It's still in the range. It's technically correct. But, everybody's paying attention to the high number. We want to see the big snows, and we don't always see those.
No, we don't, especially this past year. I mean, I think the highest snowfall we recorded so far this season was back in November. So it's been kind of quiet, even though we've had all that cold weather that we've had the past few weeks, but definitely some good advice there.
Yeah. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this and found it educational, and hope to see you in the digital world. And, of course, be here for next week's episode of Rain Check.